Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Father TED Talks. Today, I want to speak about luxury and responsibility. Now, what do I mean by luxury and responsibility? Well, a lot of people ask me about being wealthy. Is being wealthy a sin inherently? Is it a sin within the society? And can you be an Orthodox Christian and be wealthy? Can you make a lot of money? Is that inherently evil? And of course, people who are involved in the spiritual life often are very skeptical of riches. Why? Because, of course, Christ often in the New Testament criticizes those who are wealthy, but not all who are wealthy, but rather people who are not able to let go of their wealth. And so we see, of course, examples of this where Christ uses the famous example of, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man into heaven. When he was speaking to the rich man who asked Christ, what should he do to inherit eternal life? Christ tells him to keep the commandments, and the young man justifies himself and says, yes, I have done this since my youth. And Christ says, one thing you still lack, take all your riches, sell them, give them to the poor, and come and follow me. And the man left, very sad because he had many, many riches, right? And Christ says, you cannot serve two masters. You either love one and hate the other, or you'll be faithful to one and despise the other, or betray the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. All these examples, of course, exist within the New Testament, warning us of the dangers of riches. But is actually being wealthy a sin, or is it rather what we do with that wealth that defines us as Orthodox Christians or not? And I would say that it is the latter, that it is not necessarily a sin to be wealthy. There's a lot of people who work very, very hard and at whatever career they have chosen, whether you are a doctor or a lawyer, or whether you are providing a very, very valuable service, you're building something, you're creating a product that a lot of people use and make the world better. Of course, there are many, many people who are highly successful as entrepreneurs in society, and they make a lot of money. The question is, what do they do with that money? And, for us as Orthodox Christians, we would say that it is so important to remind yourself, especially when you have power and when you have luxury and you have wealth, what we do with that wealth and with that power and with that authority when we actually have it in our lives, right? And so we would say that the actual wealth or having wealth is not the sin. It is hoarding that wealth and not being able to use it for the good, the greater good of society, that would be the sin. So, for example, if we didn't have wealthy Orthodox Christians in the world, we wouldn't have churches like this, like Prophet Elias, or other churches, the temples that we build, and being able to furnish them and to make them beautiful to be able to worship God. If we didn't have people who had excess and wealth to be able to donate to the churches, then we wouldn't be able to do any of this. If we didn't have people who had an excess and wealth to donate to hospitals, to other philanthropic organizations, we wouldn't be able to have these beautiful programs to help those who are sick, those who are needy, right? And so we always require the rich, but we require the rich to be generous. We require the rich to be, giving of what they have, understanding that everything comes from God, and that even their own talents that allowed them to accumulate this wealth, it is there to make mankind and to make society better, to help the church, to help their fellow human beings. And if we do this, then being wealthy, right, having luxury, is not an evil, but rather it can become a means by which we can help other people. St. John Chrysostom was famous in saying that, the rich exist for the sake of the poor, and the poor exist for the salvation of the rich. Very, very beautiful saying, that, there are rich people and there are poor people, and the rich people are there to help the poor people, and the poor people exist there to remind the rich people, right, that they have to give. And so there will always be the haves and the have-nots in society, because, and it's not just because we live in a sinful and fallen world, but because we have free will, and some people choose to work harder than others, and some people choose to or have different talents than others. There are a lot of different factors why there is inequality within society and why some people have more wealth than others. Sometimes they are unjust reasons, but a lot of times they're also based on meritocracy, on people just working harder than other people, because we all have free will. And so we should not criticize the wealthy, but rather see how they use their riches. And as an Orthodox Christian, I would say that whatever we have, whether it's $2 in our pockets or whether it's $2 million in our pockets, how we help the church and how we help other human beings is really what will define us on Judgment Day, on how we helped the least of these Christ's brethren, as he says in the Gospel of Matthew. And so, again, wealth itself is not an evil, but rather the being a slave to wealth and luxury, to being a servant of those things, as opposed to using those things for the good of other people. I would say that, and on a final point, that for us as Christians, understanding and being grateful of the charisms, of the tools and the gifts that God has given us, understanding that God has given us those things and cultivating them. I think we're called to cultivate, to take the talents, as the parable of the talents, and to use them to grow our talents, to make not only wealth, but to be the best that we can with the gifts that God has given us. This is not a sin, but this is a type of glorification of God, right? If I am called to be a priest, I want to be the best priest I can be. If I'm called to be a surgeon, I want to be the best surgeon in the world, because this is in this way I am glorifying God. If God has given me a voice to sing, then I want to be able to sing and use that talent for the glory of God, of course, and so on and so on. And so if I dedicate myself into cultivating the charisms and the gifts that God has given me, then I will become a master of those things, and I will become great at it. And if I become great at it, people will tend to appreciate it, and also you will be compensated in many ways when you are the best in your field. And so being the best in your field and excelling and being an entrepreneur and being a good business person and so on are not sins. They can all be for the glory of God, as long as we direct our wealth and our luxury back towards our fellow human beings, towards philanthropic endeavors, towards the church. If we do those things, then we should continue to grow and grow, both spiritually and materially, so that the world becomes a better place. It is only when we turn all these blessings onto ourselves and we hoard these things and we keep them for ourselves and we forget about those who are suffering, that is when it becomes a sin and we become a slave to mammon. That becomes our master, money, and not God, who is the master of all things. That's all I have to say about that. Till next time, take care. God bless.